Welcome to Newsmakers, everybody. Good to see you again. I'm Dan Cummings, and this is Christopher Columbus, the Italian explorer who sailed for Spain. School children for generations have learned of his role in the discovery of America. Recent generations have taken a closer look, though, at the man and history, and they don't like what they see. They've pointed to his harsh treatment of indigenous people. Columbus and his crew put many into slavery. There was violence and brutality, colonial oppression. Just this week, New York City schools said they're actually getting rid of the Columbus Day holiday itself and replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, in Syracuse, as you know, Mayor Ben Walsh says the statue of Christopher Columbus will come down and Columbus Circle will be renamed and changed into a heritage and education site that will highlight the contributions of all oppressed groups: Native Americans, Black and Brown Americans, Italian Americans, and other immigrants and new Americans who all have suffered discrimination and mistreatment over the years. The statue, the mayor says, will be moved to an as yet undisclosed private location. Well, to all of that, my guests today say, not so fast. We welcome a very familiar face in the middle of your screen if you've lived in Onondaga County for more than a few years. Nick Pirro, the former county executive, and another familiar name to be sure, Tony Pietrafesa, an attorney. Mr. Pirro is now vice president of the board of the Columbus Monument Corporation. Mr. Pietrafesa is outside counsel among the corporation's legal team. He leads the legal effort. And I want to briefly remind our viewers of something you may not remember. Last October, when the mayor made his decision on this, Newsmakers, this program, spent a full half hour with someone who articulated the reasons behind Mr. Walsh's plan, Beth Broadway of Interfaith Works. Her organization served to facilitate the mayor's Columbus Action Circle Committee, Columbus Circle Action Committee, which met weekly for 2 months to discuss what should happen to the statue of Christopher Columbus and the future of Columbus Circle. And that's our topic for today, so I welcome our guests back to the program. And I want to start by asking you, Nick Pirro, before we get into the art and the history and the heritage, your group, the Monument Corporation, has been rather public lately with billboards and lawn signs and Facebook presence and social media. You're not going to change the mayor's mind. So what is happening here with your group? What's your strategy? And the mayor is, or do you think you can change his mind?
Well, I think the mayor made a rash decision last year, and he's probably stuck with it, so we're not going that route. But what we are trying to do is let the people of Syracuse and the surrounding area, Onondaga County, know what's going on. And we have had great results. Our website has drawn thousands of comments and support. Our GoFundMe page has drawn many contributions. And the more I talk to people, no matter where I am, they say, don't let that statue come down. It's part of our history. And these are, a lot of cases, non-Italians. The people know what Syracuse is all about. They certainly respect what the Italian people did 86 years ago, and in many, many ways. So what we're trying to do is get the message out that this decision by the mayor was one that really, most people didn't know about. And we're trying to let people know what it's all about. And we're drawing a lot of support from all areas of the community to keep the statue up. Again, the mayor has no authority to take the statue down. So we will be dealing with the process. One of the reasons that Mr. Pietrafesa and others are our legal team. We believe in the end, this probably will be decided in the courts.
Well, let me bring in Mr. Pietrafesa, and then, sir, what do you see as the legal grounds for challenging the mayor on this decision? Oh, he's muted. Tony, can you unmute? There you go.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead. Please, yeah.
I think it's unfortunate the way it's been portrayed is that the mayor has the unfettered ability and the singular power to do what he wants to the monument, and that's just not true. The Columbus Monument is much different than the monuments in Chicago. It's much different than the monument in Boston. It's much different than monuments in other cities where mayors have unilaterally taken it down. We believe that there is no power for this mayor to do what he wants to do for the reasons that he has said he wants to do it in law. And we're prepared to bring that argument to the courts if we have to.
Well, you have already filed the notice of intent to sue, the notice of claim, if you will. But on what ground would you do? The mayor has to take certain actions. He has to get this through the Landmark Preservation Board in Syracuse and the Public Art Commission. Both of those groups have the legal authority to approve the mayor's decision. Is that where you would challenge him on this in one of those two venues?
we don't believe, and I don't want to get too far into it, Dan, because again, I think the best place to have these arguments is in court. And when we do file our papers, which we're very close to doing, you'll be able to see our arguments in full, and we'll be able to have a real debate because the other side will have to answer. But I think if you look at certain provisions in the law, even the Landmark Board cannot give him the relief he wants for the simple reason that he finds Columbus offensive, or somebody he's trying to curry favor from finds Columbus offensive. We think the law does not go that way, and instead protects what is a piece of public art and also a piece of history, very important part of our local history.
Well, Nick Pirro, you mentioned some of the ways you're asking the public, and they've come along with you, you say, in Syracuse. But do you also see this as being potentially an issue in this year's mayoral election? Because I know you've been in contact with political leaders around town as well.
No, we really haven't been in contact. We are trying to keep the politics out of this. Political candidates can express their opinions and take their positions, whatever they want, and that's between them and the mayor. We're not running for mayor. We're not running for office. If it becomes a political issue, which it could, then so be it. But we are trying to win this thing in the court of public opinion, and again, probably in the end, in the legal challenges through the judicial system. But we are trying to keep out of the politics of it. We just don't agree with this decision, and this is what we intend to fight.
Okay, we want to make sure I'm clear, though. The Columbus Monument Corporation did send letters to the leaders of political parties making it clear where you stand on this, right?
We did send a letter to all the different political parties and committee people, letting them know where we stand. But we sent it to everybody. We didn't just send it to one party or another, or pick sides. We're not about to pick sides in this thing. We are more interested in the history of this Columbus Monument. We're more interested in paying tribute to the heritage of the Italian people that worked in the 1930s to raise the nickels and dimes and quarters and dollars to pay for this, entirely for this statue. We support, at that time, Mayor Marvin selecting the site and putting together for the dedication 150 of Syracuse's most prominent citizens, and we've got the list of them right here, to support this going up. And that's been the case ever since. We've had every mayor up until this mayor who has been there, including this mayor's grandfather, who put wreaths on the monument and supported our once a year tribute to Columbus Day. But mostly in that day, we honor prominent Italian American in the community for their work in helping make this a better community. We don't go there to just honor Columbus. We go there to honor the heritage that we all have, and to the people that certainly have made this a better community over the years. And if you looked at the list of probably since 1975, so 45 or 50 people that have been honored, they're some of our most prominent citizens.
We're going to take a quick break as we need to talk more about the art and the history and the heritage of that monument, of that circle, with my guests, Nick Pirro and Tony Pietrafesa, when we come back. Back on Newsmakers, my guests today, Nick Pirro and Tony Pietrafesa from the Columbus Monument Association, fighting hard to try to reverse Mayor Walsh's decision to take down the Columbus statue in Columbus Circle, and if they can't change his mind, which seems unlikely at this point, if not out of bounds, to beat him in the courts. Nick Pirro, I just want to read one sentence from a writer by the name of Timothy Egan as we talk about the history here. Timothy Egan writes once in a while for the New York Times. He says, the U.S. right now is in a muddle over how to tell our history, stuck between an aggressive revisionism that would leave few commemorative statues standing and a stubborn clinging to all the founding myths, no matter how odious or inaccurate. Talk to us about the history of this statue and Christopher Columbus, and why you think taking it down might be part of that revisionist history.
Well, I think we're seeing that things going on around the country where people want to just think they can make history go away. And that's really, I think, a sad decision on people's part. We need to embrace history, If there's things we don't like, we need to make things better, and I think we do that as a country. But the history of this goes back a long way. As I said, Italians, after the beginning of 1900s, all over the country where they had come from Italy, decided they wanted to honor their heritage. And they picked Columbus because he brought the route to the New World. And he was from Genoa, Italy, and they felt that he was, at that time, the appropriate person. So they, in Syracuse here, they commissioned an artist by the name of Renzo Baldi. This is a picture of the frame of the statue over in Florence, Italy, when they started to work on it. And then they raised the money. This is another picture of a number of prominent Syracuse people in New York City welcoming the granite and the stone that came from Italy to do the monument. And they went out and raised thousands of dollars. Again, we've got a list of all the contributions, and on there you see nickels and dimes and quarters from people that could barely afford it but knew how important it was to pay tribute to their heritage. And this is what this is all about. It's the Italian-American heritage in this community and what they decided to do. And for those people that want to dismiss it, someday somebody may want to dismiss your heritage and you won't like it very much. I say to everyone, if these revisionists allow it to take our statue down, your statue may be next, because they won't stop once they get the taste of having some success. These are people that I think don't have any appreciation of how hard these people worked, what it meant to them, and what it still means to a lot of us, and a lot of people of non-Italian ethnicity who I've talked to, who are behind us. And I think you'll see more of that in the near future. So it's an important piece of public art. It's in the document that talks about downtown public art. It's right in here in one big whole page. It's a beautiful piece of public art. And again, you don't just destroy public art, because once you start trying to take some public art because somebody doesn't like it, there's always something that somebody won't like. But again, if it's us today, it may be you tomorrow, and I think people need to consider that.
Well, let me move to Tony Pietrafesa, since you both of my guests today have heritage, deep roots in this community and their families before them. Tony, I don't think anybody would quibble with the fact that it's a work of art and that it exemplifies the heritage and the history that Nick just outlined. However, do you and your group give any credence to the fact that we know more about Columbus now than we did when that statue was built, and not all of it is very good? There's the doctrine of discovery, there's genocide, there were atrocities committed that's why people are moving now to say, move the statue somewhere, recognize Columbus and the Italian-American heritage, but we know much more about Columbus now than we did, and what we know discounts him as a hero. Do you give any credence to the history that we've learned in the past several decades?
Well, I mean, they're trying to place the blame of 400 years of something else on Columbus, which I think is wrong. But going back to that, Dan, and to answer your question, I think the difficult thing here that I think a lot of people, including the mayor, is we can look at our image of Columbus may have changed as a community over the past 90 years. But the statue, the monument, continues to represent the very same thing for the people that look at it. When I look at that monument, I don't look at Columbus. I think of my grandfathers, my grandparents, my great Uncle Joe, who was on the committee in 1934, who helped lead the fight to raise the last bit of money there. Renzi was in his house when they brought the statue to Syracuse. So I mean, it goes back a long way. I think the people that worked with my family on the north side, Nick's family, and that's what that monument means to us. So I think in this case, where we do have something that is not only a piece of art, we can't neglect the fact that the obelisk was designed by Dwight Baum, who is a local architect, but also the fact that it has historical significance as telling the story of Italians in central New York. And we have to be able to look past Columbus, who sits at the top, to look at the monument as a whole and accept the history of what that has become for our community. It's a part of the fabric of our community, and I think you can't ignore that. The Landmark Board can't ignore it either, even if the mayor chooses to.
Well, we need to talk more about not only these issues, but also potential solutions short of a lawsuit, which seems almost certain now, but maybe not. When we come back, more with Nick Pirro and Tony Pietrafese. Back on Newsmakers about the Columbus statue and the Columbus Circle in the heart of downtown Syracuse. Nick Pirro, you know what the mayor's proposed? The heritage site, the educational site. The Columbus statue goes away, goes to a private location, and then you would recognize all sorts of groups at the Columbus Circle. That originally you say was one of your ideas.
When we were having the dialogue circle with Interfaith Works, one of the things that we came up with was exactly that. The statue stays, the monument stays, the fountain, but that we take that pocket park where the Paulson building used to be and convert it to a heritage site. That's where the idea came from. We even offered to raise $25,000 to get it off the ground, to get it started. And then we would have local artists and people involved in the different ethnic groups decide what they want there, whether it's a statue or a interactive kiosk or whatever. So they could be recognized. But you know, the mayor then took it and said, well, the statue goes, but we like your idea. Well, our idea is that the statue is there first. It's been there for 86 years. The fountain stays, and that this mayor doesn't have the authority to take it down. And we just, again, think it's something that's important. He's dissing the Italian-American people of this community by his failure to recognize what was done and what was put into this and what it means. And he would, it would be no different than if people wanted to go up and to the West End and take the Stone Throwers monument down because they were doing illegal acts. It's crazy. It just doesn't make sense. They've recognized certain things. We've recognized something, and we think it's important that it remained, but we can include more people in it. We can take the you know, I ask people to just drop the hate and seek the truth, because a lot of things that have been written about Columbus aren't true. A lot of things that happened were well after him, and not even, you know, he never even stepped foot in the United States. A lot of bad things happened, but again, we're in 2021, and we can't go back and try to say we're going to correct something that happened 500 years ago.
Tony Pietrafese, the mayor is obviously not here to debate this. I don't think he would have had any interest in that, but I did talk to his chief policy officer, Greg Lowe, before we sat down for tape. He said that we have tried repeatedly to work with the Monument Corporation, but they have chosen to personalize it, to basically attack the mayor directly on this and go into the courts with it. What's your response to that?
I don't think, first of all, to the extent that the city or the corporation council is saying they tried to work with us. We had one letter from them. We had one phone call with them, and basically told us, you know, we were dead in the water. So we take that as putting the gauntlet down, and we're ready to move forward. I think actually, you know, I don't want to cast aspersion on the mayor, but from what I understand, you know, he says he wants to work with us, but only if we agree with his ultimate outcome, which we can't abide by. And again, which we don't believe we would be letting him have a pass on something he doesn't have the legal power to do.
Is there anything, go ahead, Nick, yeah.
We have a letter sent March 3rd to the mayor, which outlines our willingness to work with him. We have never got a response to this letter.
But the statue coming down is a non-starter, right? Now, I bet that letter didn't say, let's work with you, the statue can go. The statue coming down is a non-starter for your corporation, right?
Absolutely, that's the case.
And
we think it should be part of the history. Let everybody's history be shown there. But again, our monument is there. It's already there. It's not like we're doing this from scratch.
Is there any chance that, I've said a couple times, I don't think there is. This has got to be headed to a court of law, right? With the statue as a non-starter, right, Tony?
Unfortunately, I think you're probably right, Dan. You know, I think as Nick has said, we have offered an alternative view of dealing with the circle, which we think includes everybody, which is fine. That's what we want to see happen, but leave what's a valuable piece of history and a valuable piece of art alone and add to what is a great gathering place for everybody in central New York. But I think we're there are certain arguments that need to be made that the mayor's going to have to make. I'm glad that he recognizes, or I hope he still recognizes, that he has to go to the Landmarks Board. We think that's a futile act on his part, and we're prepared to block that, number one, and also if the Landmark Board finds in his favor, to ask the Fourth Department to review that decision as well, because we think the monument is protected by local and state law against what the mayor wants to do. I mean, you got to remember something, Dan. In 1991, the state put in $200,000 to renovate the statue. They only did that if the city was able to raise an additional outside money. And so the association, the corporation, raised $167,000, again, all private money. If that money wasn't raised, the state wouldn't have put in their part. And we only raised the money because in the contract between the city and the state, the city obligated itself to maintaining and preserving the monument in its present condition. I don't think that promise goes away anytime soon.
Okay.
And we're just asking the mayor to stand by that.
Got to take our last break. Back after this. We've been talking about the Columbus Circle and the statue of Christopher Columbus. We've been talking about heritage and Italian history and a work of art that the mayor says is coming down. And on our program today, we've been talking with the other side of that story. I want to thank Nick Pirro and Tony Pietrafesa for joining us on Newsmakers today. Gentlemen, I'm sure since this one is far from over, the three of us will be talking as the spring turns into summer and fall as we talk more about this. Thanks for joining us, all right? Stay well, guys. And we'll see you soon. You bet. Thank you, everybody out there, and we'll see you next time on News Channel 9.